So if I sit here and pick out some, I'll let you know. And you can...
I tend to get notices from, courtesy notices that a book is due. If I take out too many at one time, and then
As long as they come back.
for a while, my account was even closed because I had one too long.
Well, online, I will check it out and I may read the first chapter and then it sets around and then I'll get a notice that it's due in 4 days. So then I read through it real quick.
My notices always come.
Sandy.
I have.
Kathy ended up with some kind of conflict. I think she was leaving work late. I'm not sure.
Oh, well,
They survived.
I made it.
Yeah. Today's the 20th.
Online thing.
Oh, yeah, they do that.
Mhm. They're able to still participate. No, it's not live yet. No.
Good.
I don't know. I don't think we're streaming it.
In our state, maybe I should wait and talk about it.
You go ahead.
I was really surprised that we don't have anybody that goes back and checks and makes sure we get paid.
Are we on? We're live? Okay, we're live now, you guys.
You're supposed to do that. You didn't need to check.
Grants.
Oh, the
No,
grant.
I think he just.
Well, you know, before we got all those grants, that, and they weren't, they were never paid by us.
Or you wanted just to put it in my.
No, I'll take it. That's fine. Thank you. Very good.
But,
How did you like that?
Yeah.
Good.
It's pretty.
Was it? Okay, I didn't think it was too complicated. Yeah. And I do have the minutes from tonight, so once they're approved, I'll. Thank you.
Are the auditors going to be here tonight?
Oh, yeah, you might want to just, I'll crack that open.
was that from that online?
Yes.
I didn't get one.
This is whenever I do when I do the board orientation. So I sent that out, but I can send the link out to you if you want. I mean, it's a little video thing, and then you just,
Board training.
oh, the one that you had attended, yeah, no, I don't think. Yes.
Now you.
Hello.
No, I need to take this one. I got these table.
We take one of them now? What state will be there?
Is it both?
Yep.
I take it out when it's empty because I burn it in.
I don't care about it. I know you. I know I'm here every meeting.
Don't give me that much. Yes.
Gotta be careful because it feels on, I'll be hearing this online.
Then I turn in like
Did I say none left? write it down, so I make sure I get that.
179.
Hello, how are you? Good, how are you? You weren't here last meeting, right? I was thinking about it, so.
How are you?
Oh, well.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I made you mad.
I'm Ron
Which time?
Every time.
Oh, I was gonna say.
and.
Well, I will get you taken care of.
But, he's already up to a game now.
Just going along.
Yes, I need to bring him stuff.
I'm
As
not,
soon as I get it.
I'm not any very, like,
How are you today? I'm fine. Thank you. How are you?
wait.
How are you?
Usually when we get to our.
I'm 40.
Where would you like?
I'm glad to come to this meeting.
Oh.
I fall asleep over here.
Here.
Oh, no.
How I love
It's short. I'll spit it out in a minute.
It's all good.
You're
Straight
welcome.
to the point.
What happened to you guys?
He had knee replacement.
Hello.
I had a hard time sitting at home. I have discovered, I think he's ADH.
I'm just really glad for you to get that.
He's really doing really well. So,
Everything going okay?
That's it.
he's just about off his pain meds.
I just got another year or so to go.
How long?
You have to kind of.
6 months.
Mostly at night. He stops moving.
Good.
Didn't used to be that way, did it?
Give them the credit, so we need to speed up.
They want to beat the record from last week.
Huh?
So everybody wants to beat the record from last.
I just, I don't know what, I just feel good last couple of days. I'm busy headed and all. I told her I've already outlived all my parents and grandparents and everybody else. Go to your meeting.
Oh, God, you're still first.
Yeah.
You're very well received.
Yeah. I really wish we could turn off this,
Air conditioning.
That would help, yeah.
yeah, because it pulls a lot of noise.
Well, Billy would be the one to ask. Will I ask him? He's on it. Hopefully that will help the sound.
Like this time of year, we can get away with it, cutting the air.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
Goodness.
Round of applause for Billy.
Yeah.
Yay. Thank you, Billy.
He said,
Okay. Board members? All right. 7 o'clock, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Judy, can you do a roll call for us, please?
Okay. Carla Dellen,
Here.
Judy Walter,
Oh,
Judy Walter, are you here?
yes, no. I thought you said Walker. I'm sorry.
Ron McMullen,
Here.
Brian Detheridge,
Here.
Janet Brookshire,
Here.
George Jarman,
Here.
Dottie Walker,
Here.
Judy Tyler here. Do we have, oh gosh. All right, I got
Sandy.
Kathy Thompson
Here.
and Sandy Hinkey.
Here.
Okay,
All right. Welcome, everyone. Do we have any public comments?
Not at this time.
Okay. Consent agenda items, is there any discussion on that?
I do have a couple of updates on that. I want to thank Carlin for calling me earlier today and pointing a couple things out. Spotted a couple of errors on the incidental register and the check register. The incidental register, UMB was entered 2 times into QuickBooks. And so it's showing up twice on that register. I think we've had that before. So that, of course, was an error on Karen's part. So we identified that and we'll make sure that's corrected. And then on the check register, there were 3 checks, the total of $741.55 that were debited and then turned right around and credited back in with the same check number. Evidently, this is a glitch in the accountant's system. I think they've recently switched to a new system. And so that has been identified. We'll make sure it's corrected, but the total for the check register should be $62,248.19 instead of what was on your check register there, the total. Any other questions?
I have a question that came from,
Mhm.
Sarah, we were checking her for $300.
For who?
Sarah, I think.
And that probably would have been travel.
There were a couple of different folks that were traveling.
There was travel, so we had.
Has she ever been in the office or is she still at home?
No, she's in the office.
Well, last time she was home for a long time,
Yeah.
we were told.
She's in the office, I think just
Where did she
periodically.
travel to?
You know, I don't have the form in front of me. They should be in here.
I mean, I don't mind it, but I just wonder where.
Just a second.
Oh, well, don't worry about it.
I thought they were in alphabetical order and they're not.
But several different places or just one place you travel? For $300, that'd be a.
The Sarah Evans line
that'd be
is
600
220.
miles.
The Sarah Evans line is 220. It's not 300.
I thought some of that was maybe some of part of the training fee or something to go along with it.
I know she went to MLA, but I'm not sure if that is the one that you're referring to, because I can't
Well, it was one entry. Try.
Is everybody back in the office now?
Except for people that are out on some leave, you know, but yeah, everybody's working back.
But they're not working from home.
Only, when it's approved by me for a certain specific reason. Okay. That's
Oh, don't worry about it.
Have a question?
Here it is. Found it. $220.64, is that correct? So, she purchases supplies, so there was a trip to Walmart on there to get supplies for programming. Then there was the MLA conference. So the MLA conference was the majority of it. It was in Chesterfield, Missouri.
Where was the conference?
Chesterfield, Missouri.
Also on the minutes, paragraph 6C about the roofing committee, and it was a motion made. And everyone voted yay. However, Judy Tyler is listed as being an A, and she wasn't there.
I didn't even catch that. I guess I thought I was in two places.
You're good. You snuck in when we weren't looking.
Oh, I see where you're talking about. So that just needs to be taken out.
I'm sure it was a cut and paste thing.
I'm sure.
Any other questions? I can't remember, do we approve this by a vote or just?
Yeah. Also on the receipts or the budgets that whatever's coming in. Got a page. Trails Regional Library. Page. We have, nothing as far as Lafayette is concerned. We didn't budget them to bring in any money on the tax money.
I think the actual fiscal year 2022 budget hasn't been entered in here because these numbers are not correct as far as the budget.
These numbers are?
The current, where it says current budget, or sorry, where it says budget. Those numbers are not.
The rest of the numbers aren't good. Is that what you're saying?
So the stuff that came in current, that is all correct.
Right.
And
Year to
then
date.
The year to date is correct.
Correct.
But the budget were the original numbers, that is from the budget that was approved in June. And she has not entered the new ones from the final budget that was approved in August. So I did notice that. I sent her the new budget, you know, the final budget, and so she should get those in, and that should be
Okay.
fixed for next month.
Wondering why we were like, whoa,
I think it was just kind of combined together.
send us your money and
I think it was all combined just in the Johnson County taxes, and it wasn't separated out in the original budget.
Okay.
I think in the original one, I think that's kind of how it was. I'd have to look at the budget, which I don't have.
I looked at it, preliminary budget, and it was broken out.
So I'm not sure why it was entered that way, because this is from.
I'm sure you'll find out when you
Yeah,
have a
I will
meeting.
find out. I even have a note here, so. Anything else?
Any other?
Just have a question, not related to the minutes as they're written, but something from the minutes.
Sure.
You had mentioned in last month's announcements that there would be a retirement at the end of this month.
At the end of October.
At the end of October. When there's a retirement in the past, does the board sign a card and send well wishes or anything, or is that mostly just on the library staff?
I am not sure what the board has done in the past. I know the staff have done something.
The staff takes care of it for those.
Okay.
It seems more meaningful to come from the folks that she's actually worked with, but I just want to make sure a career of service at the library is something to be celebrated.
We haven't had too many retirements.
That's what I'm saying, should be celebrated.
And I can definitely double check on that just to make sure and find out who's supposed to be responsible for that to get that out.
Anything else? And again, I can't remember, do we vote on approval?
I make a motion that we accept the constant agenda as corrected.
Second.
Motion by Judy Walter, second by Janet Brookshire to approve the consent agenda. Roll call vote, Judy?
Harlan Dillon,
Yes.
Judy Walter,
Yes.
Ron McMullen,
Yes.
Fern Detheridge. Yes. Janet Brookshire,
Yes.
George Jarman,
Yes.
Kathy Thompson,
Yes.
Sandy Henke,
Yes.
Denise Tyler is yes, Scotty Walker.
Yes.
Oh, approved by all 10 board members.
All right. No unfinished business?
Judy, did you call Fern?
Did I not call? Yeah, I called Fern. Did I call your name? I didn't call Fern's name. Did I? You did. I thought I did. I wrote her down anyway, so I thought. Okay.
Okay, there's no unfinished business. New business is the presentation of the audit. Laura Gillums.
Thank you. Audited again, as we have in the past, and hopefully you've all had a chance to at least peek at the audit document we sent out earlier. If you want to go to page 1, that's the most important page in your audit. That's page 1 and 2. That's our auditor's report and shows the opinion. The first page is kind of nice sometime to read through. It talks about what your responsibility is and what our responsibility is. You know, you're responsible for the numbers and everything in here, and our responsibility is to see that they're materially correct, which doesn't mean we audit down to the penny. There's statistical calculations we do to come up with an acceptable error. So if you look at the very last sentence, it says we believe our audit evidence is sufficient and appropriate to form our opinion. And on the top of page 2, that's our opinion. And it says the financial statements present fairly in all material respects your financial position and results of operations, which if you were a business, that would be your balance sheet, your profit and loss statement. So that's the audit opinion in a nutshell. If you flip into the number pages, we can go through them if you want. I made very few, let's say, adjustments and corrections. There were some revenues that had kind of been lumped in some of the wrong places, and I moved them around. It was like the Evergy reimbursements, and you've got a lot of miscellaneous grant money this year, and some of that was in the wrong spots in revenue, and I just kind of moved it around. But otherwise, we didn't make any significant other corrections. So if I don't hear otherwise, we're going to skip the number pages and kind of talk about some of the big issues, okay? So if you go to page, I want to say 10. 17. Yeah, we'll go to 17 eventually. Let's go to page 10. There'll be the number pages, and then the first 2 or 3 pages of the what we call footnotes, the explanatory footnotes, are things that we have to put in all of our audits to kind of explain. They're explain your accounting policies, and it's just kind of accounting jargon. And again, if you want to understand the theories behind the numbers, read through those sometime. But if you look at page 10, I'm just going to hit some highlights that I think are important. Under cash and investments, we talk about custodial credit risk. And that's a big thing I've always pushed on in governmental entities. You're required to have your assets, your cash, fully secured at all times by collateral. And we've seen time and time again, different places, because banks merge and banks are getting bigger, we've seen where that doesn't happen all the time, that things slip up and things aren't fully collateralized. You were, and I believe every month or maybe as requested, Jackie, the executive director, can pull down a collateral report from the bank that shows it and checks it. And that's one of those things that should be checked every year. I'm going to point out some of these big things because in the transitions from one executive director to another, to another, to another, from our longstanding executive director who did a lot of things, some of that stuff's been lost. And Jackie and I did a lot of talking this year about some of these big things that ought to be checked. You're fine, you're fully collateralized, but it's one of those things that needs to be monitored. The next two are just explanatory information about your property tax levy and then about loggers, which there's really nothing important there. Your loggers rate continues to go down, so that's a good thing, or stay steady. I think a couple of years ago it increased a little bit because you had some big retirements. You probably have some longer term employees, higher dollar employees retiring in the next few years. And as that happens, your loggers rate may go up, but it stayed pretty steady. The bottom of that page, page 11, interfund transfers. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this now, and then we won't later when I have another. Last year, the previous executive director moved $40,000 from the designated gifts fund to the general fund to be used for two projects. And one of those projects was the Lexington facility. And right now I can't remember the name of the fund that it came from, but that was done appropriate. That money was spent on the Lexington facility. The other money was $20,000 from the Glazebrook bequest that was received several years ago. And I think that was done while Karen Hicklin was still here. I have documentation from the probate order that says that's to be used for the Warrensburg facility only. It, at the time it was transferred, the discussion in the minutes, or I think in the minutes or in the budget, had been to use it for Concordia, for maybe the parking lot facility. So that would have been an inappropriate transfer. The other thing about money transferred out of that designated gifts fund is it should always be approved by the board. And there was nothing in the minutes that said the $20,000 for Concordia because you never approved the project. The project, what I understood, kind of went away. That money should have never been transferred. Now, what I considered in talking to Jackie and talking to Anita, who was here at the time, is that there is a project getting ready to happen for Warrensburg, probably the roof project. So you have that money sitting there in the general fund for the library. And so I didn't have them try to figure out how to move it back. I think that's a board action. So the board can approve using that money from the Glazebrook fund, that $20,000 for something here at the Warrensburg facility, or the board can act to move it back to the designated gifts fund. So I just wanted to go through that one because it's kind of complicated, and Jackie wasn't involved in any of that when it happened. So it's one of those. So that's that page. The next page just talks about the Odessa lease purchase obligation. That's kind of nice to see what your obligations are in the next 5 years. The compensated absences, which did go up quite a bit 2 years ago during COVID, because I think the board allowed people to carry over more vacation at that time. But I did notice it went back down in fiscal year 2021. And then the equipment lease is just the copier lease, but it's that's kind of a required disclosure. Anytime you've committed to something over future years, it's good to show that. Okay, page 13, again, shows these restricted monies. And I think we've talked about that already. Under net position fund balance, the non-spendable would be if somebody gave you a building to only use for a certain activity. activity or a certain project, which you don't have, and your cash basis, so you wouldn't have a building on your books anyway. The restricted explains the designated gifts. From when I took over the audit and from what Karen Hicklin had told me, the two restricted amounts in designated gifts are the Martin for Holden and the Glazebrook for Warrensburg. Everything else is what we call committed, which again still requires board action. Anytime anything happens with designated gifts money, the board should act. And then under assigned funds, branch funds, which have been done away with, from what I understand, that branch fund things that come in now, revenues that would have normally been used as branch funds now go to the foundation, the majority of that. But there was still $10,601 left in the old branch funds that wasn't spent or wasn't shown in the books that it had been spent. So I think that the way those work is, I believe they're under the direction of the director so that she can use those branch funds to cover expenses at the branches. And usually they're for an extraordinary expense or something special you want to do. But I think that money ought to be shown that it's spent this year and get out of your books. That's really all I wanted to talk about on that. At the bottom, tax abatements. Sure.
If we don't spend that branch funds, can it be rolled over into the foundation funds?
I think the board could act to do that, although that's money. I mean, I think you would have to look at the legality of it, but I don't know.
It'd be easier to
spend it. It'd be easier to spend it. You know, I know you used it on carpet or you used it for furniture or things like that. So I think it would be easier to spend it. Any other questions on that?
Is it divided up into what branch it goes to?
There probably was internally prior to Lola's time here, but then last year they spent a lot of it, and I'm not sure that those numbers, to me, and I think I would use it on something that maybe benefited all branches. Usually, a lot of that money was Warrensburg. A lot of that, if I remember correctly, going back was for the benefit of Warrensburg because they had bigger book sales and they had more of that kind of stuff that happened back in the days, you know. Okay. But again, I think you could safely use it to benefit any or all branches.
Yeah.
And that might be something, again, it should be at the discretion of the director. I think. Okay. Any other questions on that? So then the last thing on the footnotes is the tax abatements. Johnson County does a good job of giving us information on projects they've entered into, economic development projects that show how much the taxes that have been foregone. Lafayette County, I've consulted with their auditor. I've looked at various Lafayette County cities and schools. Nobody has any information on it. So they say there are none. I have a hard time believing that they didn't enter into any special tax agreements with a lot of those things that have gone on, particularly like Odessa area. But again, I've talked to the outside auditor, the county auditor, and I looked online at City of Odessa, City of Lexington, some of those audits, and nobody reports any. So, but this is some good information if you ever want to know what you've given up. Any other questions on that? Then I think we are going to skip to your favorite page, Ms. German, page 17, I think you said.
Not my favorite.
It's the most important page.
It's easier to understand.
So in the past, we've done your audit under two sets of audit standards, what we call generally accepted auditing standards that we use on any organization, and then government auditing standards that we use for governmental entities. Because of the way our accounting rules are going and the way the government is going, In order for us to audit a small entity like you and do your financial statements for you, make them pretty like we do, we can't also audit them. We would need another organization to come in under the government auditing standards, prepare your financials, we would do. So we consulted with our people that audit us and have decided to just pull those words, government auditing standards, out and change the way we report it. Do the same level of work, nothing has changed, report the same things to you, it just reads a little differently. So now instead of the letters you had before, you have communication of significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. Out here, we have 2 material weaknesses, which are the highest level. They're things that you could have errors that are big in your financial statements, and I believe they would not be caught. And let's go back to the year ending June 30, 2021. So this doesn't fall on Jackie. It's a word of warning, I think, to her going forward. But I think we all know that there were things that could have happened in your financial statements these last couple of years that would not have been caught. So the first one is that there's a lot of bills and invoices that we're going through for Karen to input that no one else had looked at. Nobody had approved, nobody had initialed. Now at the board at the end, you see a list, but somebody should be looking at every invoice before it goes in to be paid. And so that's been changed and they're working on it. They worked on it last year and a lot of things did get initialed, a lot of big things, but there were also those kind of things that I think should have been, but weren't, okay? 2 years ago, we had a lot of problems with credit card not being reviewed and initialed. I selected probably 6 months and just flipped through, and there were documents there. Those were all reviewed and initialed. So I think we fixed that. We fixed using the incidental account for things that we don't have to use the incidental account for. That had kind of become a general practice where we'll just pay this bill using the incidental account because it's easier and we don't want to wait for the board meeting kind of thing. So those 2 things have been fixed that were in last year's report, not this. So the big thing there, that was one of the material weaknesses. The second, it was in evidence tonight. The financial reports prepared by the outside accounting firm are not subject to detailed administrative review, and procedures for non-routine things that happen are not documented, is what we say, but aren't understood. So like tonight, the fact that the budget hadn't been changed, now she caught that and knew about it, but it's one of those things that, should have been corrected. The fact that there were duplicate payments and a plus and a minus that are in your general ledger or in your thing that weren't caught by administrative review ahead of time is the weaknesses I'm talking about. And we had that on a lot of things. Like I said, those revenues, I went to staff and asked about what are these deposits? There were deposits in either athletes and entertainment or state aid. There should only be 2 in there. I know that because I've done the audit so many times, but there were extra deposits in there. Well, I knew them, but nobody knew what they were because they were wired in from the state with no documentation, no follow-up. So it's that kind of thing. And I really believe you've got an executive director now who can do all this. She's got to have time to get there. But it's something I think the board needs to be aware of, is that's the thing. We need the big picture now. We need, somebody and she needs to have time in her day for assistance. Once I think she gets comfortable with what she's doing, she may need another person in there to help with that, because there's a lot of transactions that go on through there. So that's the big thing. If you look under effect, the 3rd paragraph down, we noted miscoded revenues and expenses. There were payroll tax payments that the accounting firm made late. There were retirement monies that were withheld, the 403B payments were withheld from employees that weren't paid at all 1 month until I caught it in the audit. So those kind of things happen. And if we had somebody knowledgeable helping Karen, or reviewing things, that kind of stuff wouldn't happen or shouldn't happen. Then the big stuff that didn't happen last year, and Jackie worked hard to catch it up, but those foundation quarterly reports were never prepared, that roll that money forward. Your designated gift fund reports weren't accurate. The things that came into your budget this year were prior year, 2 year ago numbers. So there's just a lot of those kind of out of normal cycle, monthly cycle reports that weren't correct and accurate. And again, not throwing all that on Jackie, but that's stuff she's going to have to work toward and prioritize. Okay. Then the last thing at the bottom of the page is significant deficiency is a little lower level of internal control weakness that we found. It's something that I don't think if it was big dollars, it would happen. But a lot of these small grants this year, they had numerous grants, more than I've ever seen, money coming from all different sources. But when I got to talking about it, people did a really good job tracking their expenses and sending their report in, but nobody knew, did we get the money back? Yeah, we had a lot of that. Sarah was very good and very helpful in finding the paperwork, but it was here, it was there, it was kind of everywhere. And I think Jackie's already set up a system to have a central place to file that. Okay. Any questions for me? That was a little longer than I usually do, but next year it'll be quick. It's going to be great, right?
That's right.
I have a question, and maybe you can or can't help us. It's a general one. I think as a board, we knew that things weren't right. And I remember people talking about the gift fund and, trying to get information. And I know that that's not going to be an issue for us. I have a lot of confidence in Jackie and I appreciate what she's done so far. But what can a board do? I mean, in terms of, instead of waiting till the end of the fiscal year and the audit, what can a board do?
Well, you should get these financial reports that you get, and you should be able to look at them and ask your director questions, just like tonight when he asked about the travel reimbursement, your director found it. Now, I would suggest possibly having staff alphabetize that or something for you next time.
I was looking at the wrong one.
Okay, so there you go. She didn't know her alphabet, and she's a librarian. What's that? No, but I agree. You've got to wipe these last couple of, we've got to wipe these last couple of years. And unfortunately, it's difficult that Karen Hicklin couldn't have trained Jackie and we move forward. So have patience with her, but certainly ask questions. I think that's the biggest thing I see at board meetings we go to when we'll give our audit report. You guys are asking me questions. We'll give our audit report and everybody's eyes are glazed over and nobody really cares, or the financial report is given by the director or whoever. And I'm not that they don't care, but maybe it's over their head and they don't want to ask the question. So yeah, I think that's what you can do. Yeah.
I was just really surprised by the grant. And is it customary? I'm not real familiar with grants. I'm not real familiar with how they usually do it. But in my mind, I would think this one person would monitor them all the way through.
We audit school districts, and I see it sometimes even in big school districts because this person applies for this grant and this person applies for this grant. And in good school districts like Warrensburg, everything eventually funnels up through one person who signs the grant request, and the grant report goes out. And I believe the director probably has to sign them all. I think what happened was, and it could have been because of the transition, but I think what happened is that we'd sign those things and send them out, but then the director wasn't following up to make sure we got the money. And again, a director, that's probably falls on the director or that financial person, you know, that should be, it could be Karen's responsibility to, you know, because she's the one that sees the deposits come in, but yes, it should, again, it should happen.
Right.
But again, that all points back to that financial weakness I have, that we don't have anybody, or we didn't have anybody looking at the big picture out here. And that's what I think we need to work on.
I want to thank you for the very good description of all the little notes and everything that you put into this one. I guess they were there all along. We never read them. But since we gotten it, this report in our package, we had time to read it.
Right, and you've gotten in your package in other years, just last year you did not, because it was, and possibly the year before when we had the other issue going on. The last couple of years were challenging for everybody out here, and it made finishing the audit in time to get it in the packet very difficult. Well, and even this year, we didn't get the audit finished for the September board meeting, and I mean, I don't apologize for it, because I'd rather you get a good report than a complete report than a rushed report.
But it didn't make all those
Make all the
words
connections.
and words that you use familiar, and I know Jackie does. We now understand them.
Good. I'm glad you read it.
But the board still needs to decide what to do with that 20,000.
Yes, the board should take action. And Jackie and I discussed it, and I think she'll have it either tonight or on a different
It'll be
tonight's
on the
agenda.
next agenda.
The also, there's a lot of stuff that you covered here and tonight that the board never saw.
Mhm. And again, I think we all know that. I think we can fully acknowledge the past wasn't good, but again, I've had several meetings with Jackie, and I feel like you've got somebody that's got the financial and the administrative know-how now. So that I will tell you, I walked in with both previous directors and never had that feeling. So, okay. Any other questions for me? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you next year.
I have one.
Yes.
Hello?
She's listening.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, when you were talking about the grants, could possibly they start just a spreadsheet or something, and that whenever they start a grant, and so there's a master list someplace that maybe that would at least help them get a starting point, and you can put a date when it was completed, filled in, and just kind of follow through, and maybe Jackie, the director, can sign off on it over to the right, or at least, and maybe only a couple people ought to have access to that, so nobody can change those things.
Yeah, I know Jackie's already working on a system and I feel like she's got it under control. I also feel like the volume of grants is slowed down. Last year was unusual with all the CARES
We had a lot.
money and a lot of extra grants. Does that answer your question?
Good thing.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item B.
So consider approval to apply for the LSTA Technology Mini Grant. Due to the grant application deadline, which was last Friday, we did go ahead and submit the application for the project. So if you do not approve it, I can pull our application, but just due to the deadline, we wanted to get that in just in case. Basically, we would be replacing aging and out-of-date computers and monitors. We already had money in the current budget in order to replace 22 of the computers, 22 monitors. This will allow us to double that. So we'll be able to do 44, and we have 58 within the whole system. So that'll allow us to update, get new, computers for 44. So 44 computers and monitors to go with those. The grant portion would be $27,346. So that's what we requested from the grant. And then, of course, already in the budget that was approved in August, we already would be using $30,022. So that would kind of be our local match. It's not a required local match, but it just basically makes our budget go a lot farther.
Where was that grant coming from?
That is a LSTA grant through the state library.
Okay.
So you buying many new computers, what are you doing to go?
Some of them will be switched out for like other things. So like our OPACs or the catalogs that we use. If there's, some other ones that we can maybe switch out, we would do that, or they would be possibly recycled. Depends on
Some people may want them.
I would have to check with our tech person. I'm not
Whether
sure how.
recycle them, I mean, if you're just gonna recycle them, that's just going away, people may be happy to have one of them. So,
Yeah. I'd have to
Yeah,
look into
okay.
ways that we could possibly dispose of them legally, since we use taxpayer dollars for that. But yeah, I could look into options.
Will you get paid for disposing them?
I'm not sure.
I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so, so that's why I would think somebody wanted one.
We've got equipment, surplus equipment in the past that we sold.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It had to be.
You would have to be careful about selling surplus because we are a public entity.
Yes.
And we're not meant to make a profit off of public property.
But it's in our policy that we can sell it, and we have sold computers in the past, according to policy.
And I don't care
Laptops that we
myself,
got
you
in
just don't
for.
wait if you just don't wait for a deal, why not have somebody be able to get it, people that needs a computer, they could get it without paying for it if you just don't run the,
I will definitely look into our
Whatever.
options for disposal.
maybe nobody want them, I don't know.
Sometimes when they're so out of date, no, sometimes people don't want them.
Well, but
They're more trouble than they're
some
worth.
people
at that
don't
point.
have computers, I know in Langston, we got several
Mhm.
people that really don't have computers,
Mhm.
and, but they come at the library, different places, and
Sure,
and uses them all the time. But if you can't, I mean, but just disposing them.
I'll look at
You don't get
ways
any
that
money
we
for
can.
disposing. If you do, that's fine. If you don't get any money for disposing, there should be an opportunity for someone to take one.
Sure, and I'll look into all the options
Okay,
and see
yeah,
what we can
fine.
do. Yeah.
The last time when we had those laptops, we bought them.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, it was the laptops.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we couldn't make a bid on them, could we?
Mm-hmm. I got 4 of them.
Oh, did you? Okay, I was thinking.
I said I wanted 1 or 2, and when I came back from wherever I was, I walked in and they said, oh yeah, we got 4 of them for you. And I go like, what?
Looking at a long-term technology plan, if we were to accept the grant funds along with the amount of budgeted money, you'd be replacing a large percentage of your technology in 1 budget year, which means 5, 8, 10 years down the road, that amount of technology reaches its end date again around the same time. Do we have a plan in place that could accommodate that in the next cycle?
Not currently, but every one of you have probably heard me say this, I'm a planner. And so we have already been talking that we do need a technology plan in place. And I'm hoping that some of that stuff, some of those larger projects will come about and actually be a part of our strategic plan. So it's in there as a goal that we need to achieve. So
I'm all about upgrading the technology when you have the resources, but that also could create a bottleneck further down the line. So that's the only reason that I would be cautious about. But that's a pretty small doubt.
So I just have one question. Is there a reason why this particular grant is being discussed by the board?
They're all
As
supposed to be
opposed to
discussed.
other grants that have never been on?
I bring grants to my board.
Okay.
So that is what I do. Because if my board is not on board with the project that we're looking at with the grant, why am I going to spend staff time, energy, working
Okay.
towards that.
I thought that maybe there was something special about this particular
No,
grant because I understand that there's been other grants that we have.
We were in the air a lot before, previous to this.
Okay.
Like she said, the last competent director we had, we didn't have grants, period. And we got a couple in here, oh, they love grants. They were, and that's the reason that I don't think they were being tracked properly because it was new to the staff.
Every grant, you should have a folder and all of your grant materials go in that with the grant number and the name on it and the year. And then everything stays in that one spot. And, if it's one person should have oversight over those, even if other people are doing the purchasing, they should be giving you the information so you can compile it all together. It shouldn't be where we have to ask this person for this and this person for that, kind of what we had to do with audit. So yeah, we are already working on.
I knew you were.
That was one of the first things, because I was asking about grants and nobody could, you should just be able to hand me a folder. Here you go. And everything's in one spot.
But to answer your question, it was wrong before when we didn't know about the grants that were being applied for.
Okay.
Yeah, like-
This just stood out in my mind as something that I hadn't seen us do before, so.
This is just me. That's how I do it, because I want my board to make sure that they are okay with the projects that we are applying for a grant for.
And
Because if not, why are we wasting our time?
is that the same, even if somebody's applying for a $200 grant?
Yeah.
Okay,
As long as I am your director, you will
Okay.
get that.
We appreciate
Sometimes
that.
due to deadlines on the grant application when it's due, just like with this one, sometimes you might get it after the fact. Same thing with the award. I will bring the award for you to approve to actually accept the award under the terms of the grant.
I think Carlin had a question.
And it's, okay, just one second, let me finish my thought here. And then, as soon as, so sometimes those awards, you have a certain amount of time to actually sign that and accept it. So same thing, if you guys do not approve that, once I bring it to you after the fact, we can always, just give the money back. Yes, Garland.
Could you refresh my mind? How much was the grant for?
For this one,
Yes.
it was $27,346, and the maximum amount we could request was $28,000. So we almost,
But we have to match that, right? Almost.
which was already in our budget for replacement computers and monitors, yes.
any other questions?
You ready for a motion? I move that the board support the LSTA Technology Mini Grant, the application.
I second that.
And
Was that Kathy or Sandy?
There's Kathy.
motion by Dana, second by Kathy to approve the budget roll call vote.
Carla Dillon,
Yes.
Judy Walter,
Yes,
Ron McMullen,
Yes.
Fern Deatheridge. Yes. Jenna Brookshire,
Yes.
Georgia Jarman,
Yes.
Kathy Thompson,
Yes.
Sandy Henke,
Yes.
Judy Tyler, yes. Scotty Walker.
Yes,
Motion approved.
all right, thank you. Item C,
So this is the Missouri Victims Economic Safety and Security Act, or VESA, leave policy. So this basically is a new state law provision. And so I gave you the information that we received from our attorney. And then, of course, the policy that he also created. It doesn't look all fancy like our other ones, but this is the verbiage is what you would be approving. We have to notify all employees of this with our new policy by the 27th of October, next week.
Is this something we have to approve? But if it's state law, doesn't it have to go into
We
effect?
really have to do it, yeah. It's just you approving the policy that was actually written. And this, what I'll tell you, this was written by our attorney.
I make a motion that the board approve that policy.
Second it.
A motion by Judy, a second by Fern. Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Carolyn Dillon,
Yes.
Judy Walter,
Yes,
Ron McMullen,
Yes,
Fern Deatheridge. Yes. Jenna Brookshire,
Yes.
Georgia Jarman,
Yes.
Kathy Thompson,
yes,
Sandy Hinky,
Yes,
Judy Tyler, yes. Scotty Walker.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Meeting locations for January through June.
So I know, the board had asked if we, the possibility of moving around to other branches. So I did have the IT department look at the possibility of that with our streaming situation. And so, they also worked with facilities to come up with this. So, they found the following results, as options for streaming the board meetings. There are two categories we have split the branches into, with social distancing and without. Warrensburg, Knob Noster, and Odessa can be streamed in with social distancing. The remaining 5 branches, Concordia, Porter, Holden, Lexington, and Waverly, can be streamed in without social distancing. Also note that when streaming in any branch other than Warrensburg, facilities and IT need advance notice. First of all, they need an advance notice. Second, they need physical access to the location to bring tables, chairs, and equipment to the site in order to prep and set up for the meeting. So what you want to do?
I think the other 2 branches already have enough tables available to them that IT would not have to bring any in.
I agree with that. They wouldn't need to bring in chairs and tables. They would have to set them up like they do here, but they would already be there.
Are we ready to go back to live meetings without streaming?
How many people did you guys normally get to your?
I think so.
It was very rare for people to show up. I mean, maybe 2 or 3 people would show up.
The only people that ever showed up were the Holden group.
There was a group of Warrensburg employees when there was some issues going on that came and watched our meeting. They never said anything. They just watched.
Is there a benefit to having a recording as part of the public record?
No,
We've never done this before. This is all new.
that's just another form of keeping. We've got the paper, we've got the recording, and we don't need all that. All we need is the paper, which is signed. Once it's approved.
The minutes you're talking
Right.
about.
Mhm.
I do know some people like it because they can't necessarily attend the meetings on Wednesday, so they actually watch the recording later. And we usually get quite a few views on our recordings that I'm not sure we would have actually in person. So that is something to consider as well.
I don't really care which way we go, whether we go somewhere else. But really, just like here, when you go to other libraries, like different places, you really don't do a whole lot other than just have a meeting.
Mhm.
I don't really know why we, in my opinion, we just continue to have it here like we always have.
Is that a motion?
Well, I don't know what everybody
I
else
think we
wants.
should go back to individual libraries.
Well, we can't, I'm going to Lexington, I'll tell you that.
You're not going to Lexington?
Not to a meeting in Lexington.
Oh,
They still got masks and then we still got a lot of things in that town.
Well, we can put them towards the tail end or really adjust it as
Or
we
you
go
could-
along.
or you could just rotate through the 3, that you can social distance and start there.
What were the 3? Warrensburg, Concord?
Warrensburg, Knob Noster, and Odessa.
I think it's real good. I know this real well. I don't really understand. You know the library in Odessa, they don't have a big room area.
No, I haven't. This is the only branch I've ever visited. So I was kind of looking forward to having a reason to go to the other branches. But a concern that I have is that's unnecessary additional labor for the library employees to travel and set up and tear down because you're
I don't think we should
Tech
split
guys
it
are-
up between just three. I think we should either leave it here or go to all of them.
It doesn't matter to me. I don't have to drive that far, and I know some of the rest of you do. So, you know, I know that can be a concern through the winter time but if we're live streaming, you also have the advantage of being able to, phone in, you can phone in or
But as I understand, this technology doesn't work in all the branches, correct?
According to the test that they did, they can, let me just double check here.
with advance notice.
Yeah, they would need advance notice, which we would have. We put it on our agendas. The 3 branches can be streamed with social distancing in place, so you're 6 feet between. So they've got it worked out where they think that they can do that. And then the other 5 branches can be streamed without social distancing. So you would not, of course, be able to be the 6 feet apart.
Normally, what we did previous years before COVID, the winter months, we kept close to Warrensburg, Knob Noster, and, you know, where you could reach out and touch somebody. We didn't want to be traveling on nasty winter roads either. So that's something else to think about.
Well, that's not exactly fair to people
that live on those.
I agree, nobody
mountains.
wants to say, but I'm moving, we continue to have it here next 6 months.
I'll second that.
I would second that.
Okay. I'll withdraw my second, so whoever seconded can second.
Who is the second?
That was Sandy.
Okay. Okay, I'll take a roll call. Harlan Dillon,
Can I have it clarified? What are we voting?
we're voting to have,
Meetings here for the next 6
yes,
months.
well, or for the remainder of the
Then we
fiscal.
may move after summer.
After
Next year,
6
we may
months.
See what the COVID does and everything after that.
Yes,
Hold on just a minute. Are you saying through the balance of this fiscal year?
Yes.
Through June?
Yeah, do you?
All right. Harlan Dillon, yes. Judy Walter,
No,
Ron McMullen,
Yes.
Vern Detheridge,
yes, with reservations.
I'm not sure that's. I'm gonna put you down as a yes, because that was your first word. Janet Brookshire.
What Fern said, that's a yes.
Okay. Georgia Jarman,
Yes.
Kathy Thompson,
yes,
Andy Henke,
Yes.
Judy Tyler, yes. Scotty Walker.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed with 9 yeses and 1 no.
could I bring up something? That as the winter months come on, if somebody wants to stay home and Zoom in, if they're having problems with it, I'm sure our IT people would be more than willing to help a board member figure out or set up.
what to do now?
Well, I agree with that, but you know, in the past, of course, I've been on here several years, but when we had some bad weather,
Right.
we just canceled the meeting and moved it to another week or something. If, you know, we had a lot of snow and ice and some bad roads, well, then the director just decided, hey, let's move it for another opportunity, for another week.
That's always an option too, or attending virtually, sure.
Well, whatever, but if you really bad weather,
If
then,
it's really bad, none of us want to.
yeah,
do it.
and I don't care about having virtually, we will in December, I guess, a little bit,
Sure.
whatever.
You have
We have 10
Okay.
meetings.
Huh?
We have to have 10 meetings. And right now we have 11 scheduled.
I'm just saying that's an option. I'm sure our IT department would be more than willing to help
Absolutely,
a board member if they were having trouble.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Roofing committee update?
Do the ladies on the roofing committee want to give?
We're gonna turn it over to you because you're our
Give you an
contact.
opportunity to give the update.
That's okay, Jackie.
Darn. All right, so we met, the roofing committee met, so it was Sandy, Judy Walter, and Harlan. All, and Anita and I all met, and kind of reviewed the materials that were sent, the, what was it called? Hold on. Engineer Services Agreement, the questions from Tracy Brantner, and the questions from our attorney that we kind of discussed and everything. So then they decided they were gonna turn it over to me, so.
Well, we needed a designated
Yes.
speaker.
For negotiation. And so,
She's here handy, so.
I'll be the point person for that. And then, of course, as, Anita will be my workhorse, as she said. And so I can delegate to her as needed. Once those negotiations are complete, the roofing committee will reconvene to review the agreement. And if it's acceptable at that point, the committee can recommend to take it to the board. And then it will come to the board for approval before it's actually entered into for the contract. And I want to thank Sandy, Carlin, Judy for your insight, your questions, the discussion, your expertise that you had. It was all very helpful and very eye-opening, to say the least. But thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
After we had our meeting, I kind of have done a little more homework, and I'm wondering if our roofing committee will be meeting again, because I have, like I said, I've tried to do a little homework.
Oh, well, we could certainly meet again.
Okay.
I'll put it down. I'll set up a meeting for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any announcements?
I don't know if anyone else caught it, but Carlin asked a couple months ago about the financial system, whether or not we're continuing to make payments on that. Yes, we do make payments on that for the work they do, and also Orange Boy, we're continuing to pay for Orange Boy.
Yes. So the ADP, which is, that's what you're talking about, the financial system, yes. So we pay them a certain amount per pay period. So they kind of process all of that stuff. But yes, we are continually having to pay ADP. I'm sure there was a higher amount that you had to pay for the like over and over the initial amount. I wasn't here, so I'm not sure what that dollar amount is. I can find out if anybody wants me to. But I'm not sure what that was. But yes, we do pay. So twice a month, you should see it on there. And there's a couple of months out of the year that you'll have 3 in there because we'll have 3 pay periods. So 26 all year. And the Orange Boy. So yes, so we are still paying them. They are still working on the strategic plan with us.
We're under contract with Orange Boy. Do we know? I thought somebody said it was a 5-year contract and we're like 3 years in.
I can check on it for you.
Has anybody else gotten an email from them to take a survey?
I did.
Did I send out yet?
I had not received anything other than what you said.
I didn't get
I wanna
anything
go
from
with
Orange
that.
Boy. I think
No, not yet. We're gathering all the people that say yes. That's what that email was for.
No, I had an actual survey.
Oh, that was
That was
before.
way back.
No, I just did it last week.
This was sent out, was it today?
I got it done today or
I
yesterday.
think it was sent out this afternoon, like 12 o'clock.
I think I got one.
Yeah, I saw that one, but I did one. I got sent one I think it was last week.
Yes, for our survey. Yeah. So we sent it out originally, the survey, And then we sent a reminder for those people that didn't fill it out. We can tell who filled it out and who didn't. And so we sent a reminder to those folks. So you might have got the reminder one, I'm not sure.
I didn't get one today.
You did not get one today.
Came on the phone.
I got an invitation to do the survey. with
Yeah,
the
that's,
link.
that's what I got, yeah. There was nothing.
No, I did a survey.
It was just asking if,
There was maybe about,
Should it have come from Trails? Should
It would have come from me. Yeah, it would have been my email address.
but you haven't, I got a survey, guys. I don't know.
We
I don't
sent
know.
surveys out first.
Yeah.
That was another step. Now we're on the stakeholder interview or key stakeholder interviews.
The one
And so
you
they'll be
filled out
ones-
before was as a patron.
Yes,
Okay, thank you, Fern. Because I'm thinking, I know I'm not losing my mind. I filled out a
this
survey.
is actually.
this is from Jack.
Okay,
Yeah, you did.
and so I need to
It
do
was
that.
today at 12:43.
And it's just asking if we would take part in the survey.
And I replied, "Did you get it?"
I've gotten a bunch of them today. I have not had a chance to go through and figure out which ones and compile a list so that they can contact you guys.
Yeah, that's what mine says.
Paper, yeah, I thought this one I just got says paper.
It is. It says
Yeah.
your value paper. All right. Anything else? Meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, the one I took was 8/27. No,
8,
no.
It's September.
that's August.
All right, good to see you,
All right.
everyone.
Hey, Ron.
Hi, Ron.
Take care.
I think I trashed it.
Just wanted you to know, we didn't set a record.
I know. Darn it.
Was we supposed to?
Laura talked too long.
Last one, the meeting lasted 29 minutes.